Hey guys, welcome back to the Hooked, the podcast. Travis, what's up, buddy?
Not much, man. How you, bub?
I'm good, man. Hey, got a good show. We're gonna talk about what to expect when you're expecting a kayak kind of deal. Beginners, good stuff here. Let's jump right into it. Travis, talking about getting into kayak and just being a beginner. Where did it kind of start for you? It seemed like everyone kind of had the same story, and we've talked about it a lot. But seems like a Bass Pro kayak was where most people start at. But what about you, man?
I actually had a buddy who was big into kayaking, Brian Nestor, Springfield, Missouri. He was right there with the James River and and is really to this day still into it. This is 25, 30 years ago. Um, I actually lived on Lake of the Ozarks. He came to my house, left his kayak at my house, and I just started using it. And I've told this story before, but threw a crappie rod in, run over to Tonka and just started slinging a little bit, trying to catch some crappie in a kayak and figure it out. I hooked into an 18-pound hybrid, fought it for 45 minutes, had the best time of my life, and absolutely got hooked. And that was a Jackson Kilroy. In the beginning, that's what I was looking at. Didn't really go that direction because I didn't really like it's kind of a hybrid, sit in, sit on top. Yeah. But yeah, that's kind of what got me started though, man. Just hooked into a big fish. When I caught that fish, they actually bass boat guys were laughing at me and said, you would have never caught that fish if you would have been in anything else. And those words stuck with me forever because I was the drag. He just towed me around forever and he couldn't break me off. 6-pound test. He couldn't break me off because I just kind of went where he went. And, right. And at that point I was just hooked, man. I loved it and thought it was a great time. And that's what started my kayaking.
Yeah. It was a Bass Pro kayak. My mom worked for Bass Pro and my parents got me one for Christmas. Hooked me up. And it's kind of funny that you say Tonka was one of the first, because it's almost like in this area, it's like almost like a rite of passage. It's like, where are you going to take that kayak first? And Tonka is one of those spots that everyone goes to. It's perfect because it's in a Wake Cove. There's a spring there, a lot of stuff going on there. So that was where it started for me. And then, going fishing was fun. And then the tournament scene, I didn't realize how big and growing that was at the time. And this is 3-4 years ago, but it's amazing what it is. And that's what's really, kept me going, is the thrill of competing and doing all that. But let's get JT on here as well. He's pretty new to kayaking, kayak fishing. JT, man, I know you've gone through a couple kayaks now, and you've got a couple new ones that you've been demoing out and whatnot. But what got it going for you, man?
I mean, mine's a little less cool of a story, to be honest. I kind of got into it because, I mean, I'm a lifelong angler here in Minnesota and have always loved it, but primarily some boat fishing and then wading for trout and a lot of our trout streams. So I actually kind of found this sport, quite honestly, it was through a job search, right? I found you guys during the pandemic when, work circumstances hit a lot of people differently. And I found an eco fishing shop and they kind of needed a social media person. And that's kind of how I really started diving deep. And it was not very long before I had purchased one. So there are a lot of things that we'll talk about too, that I wish I would have known. And that's kind of what this podcast will be aimed at, is a lot of things I wish I would have known when I made that first purchase. But unless you get in a few and try them out or talk with other people who have been in them, I mean, there's really only one way to learn, and that's starting somewhere.
Yeah, and you actually had the benefit of coming to us first, because even even JT's first purchase was not what JT was looking for in the beginning. In the beginning, I believe you were looking at a Sauger tandem kayak, and ended up going a different direction after kind of talking through it. So, yeah, basically, what we want to talk about today, guys, on this podcast is, in my mind, there's two kinds of people looking for a kayak. There's the person who's wanting to get into it, who's never even been in one. And we get a lot of those folks. Then there's the folks who have been in several kayaks. And I'm talking about new people, not a guy who's had a kayak and then looking. But then there's the people who have been in a couple of buddies' kayaks or rented a couple of kayaks and have some form or fashion of familiarity with kayaking in general. And it's good to be able to come into a shop, this shop, any local shop that you have, do demos. But yeah, just walking through, we're going to walk through today, just all the kind of, not really do's and don'ts, but really finding what suits your needs.
Yeah, let's start off with talking about whole design, whole shapes. We kind of typically look at kayaks as like a river lake kayak is kind of what we look at. So I mean, you've got a couple different styles, and what works best for us. So Travis, I'll let you. I know you're in the Autopilot 120. That's definitely more of a lake boat. In the shape of the hull, or looking at a kayak, what tells you kind of a lake kayak versus a river one?
So your lake kayak is typically going to be a little heavier. It's going to be more of a little deeper kayak, and that's where the length really starts helping you out on wave break and things like that. And a lot of people think that the length of a kayak is going to help you with stability. It's not as much about stability. It's about the way when the water's moving that kayak takes those waves. A shorter kayak is going to be a lot more up and down. I know the difference between a 106 PDL or a 106 Minn Kota, which I had before, and a 136. The stability wasn't that much different, but it's just taking rough water a lot different. So, when it comes to a lake boat, to me, they're going to be a little bit more, I wouldn't say stable, but just a little heavier boat. Your river boats are going to be a little quicker, a little bit more mobile, because you need the mobility to be able to get around stumps, get around anything that's the water's taking you to, because you're on moving water.
And just looking at like a shape perspective, to me, when I see like at the bottom of the kayak, if it's super flat, I usually relate that to like a lake boat.
Right.
Jackson, very well known for river kayaks, they have a more V-shaped bottom. And what that does, that allows you to give you a little bit more lean, because that way, if you're paddling or pedaling, you can really turn and you can turn better, and ultimately having more control. I know JT, you've had that Outback, and you've been out in it a couple of times. That one is kind of like a hybrid. It's kind of like a best of both worlds. It's got a good, somewhat flatter bottom, but it also has that good V-shaped cut. What have you thought about that Outback? I know you haven't had it out recently, but I know you've been in it before.
Yeah, I mean, I'll get back out there when the water finally did freeze. So
Yeah,
I've got until May, maybe June, it depends. But it's night and day between, and this is one of the things that I didn't know, right? I guess I look at it almost comparing them to a pontoon boat versus a more V-styled fishing boat. You're going to cut through waves a little easier with that V, and you're going to be able to. The really big thing to think about too is how quickly you can turn. So
right.
the first kayak I bought was the Vanhunks Pike, more of a pontoon style, big flat bottom, extremely stable for how short it is. I have no
Really
problem.
great. A really great starting kayak for anybody just getting into. Like, that's a really good one. Sorry to cut you off, but that's a really good one to start at.
No, and one thing I don't even noticed with that too is, you can't really beat the price point for having it has a fin drive, and I have the propeller drive too, and just it has in-hull storage, it has front of the kayak storage, it has a ton of stuff for the price you pay. So I still love that kayak. I mean, I've got it rigged out. I have no more room left now. It only took me a couple of years to finally get in that, but it's night and day getting from that to something that has more of that V style in the front. Like the tighter turns. Like I've noticed, I fish a lot of back bay areas of the Mississippi River, slow moving but tight and narrow. And it's like a 6-point turn to turn that pontoon style kayak. You hit your rudder left and it takes a good 20, 30 feet before it really catches the turn. So if you're looking for someone, you've got to get in and out of tight areas. Those are just some of the things you think about that I had no idea. So,
And JT, like I said, not to cut you off, but to be clear, for someone new watching this, what JT's saying is not bad. That's not a knock on the Pike. That stability is something some people are looking for, but it's kind of like you get so many different options on a kayak, and you can't have every single one of them. You can't have a super light kayak that's super fast, that's super cheap, that's super, you can't put all those together. The Pike, it's just different. So I just wanted to clarify that when JT's saying that, that's not a knock on the Pike. That primary stability on the Pike is what sells that kayak,
Yeah.
and the price point. But that primary stability, I've got a gentleman right now I'm working with. He's 64 years old. He says he's never going to stand up in a kayak, and his primary goal is stability. And the secondary goal is less than 10 foot because he's fishing farm ponds and things like that. The Pike is the absolute perfect kayak for him for that, to fit all of his needs. Now, it's not going to cut and turn like the Outback is, but it's a different need, and you figure those out as you learn and as you go, and as you fish and figure out how you're going to fish. So, like I said, not to cut you off, JT, I just wanted to really remind people that when we talk through today, we're not knocking anything. We're just saying that there's different goals to reach with different hole designs, and you kind of figure out what suits you.
It's comes down to pros and cons, and you've got to figure out what you're wanting to do and what your goal is. Along those lines, your longer boats, your boats that cut water better, they're going to be faster. If speed's one of those things, the big water 132, that one's perfect for speed. It's a fast boat. If your stability, you want something more lake, you probably want a more flatter bottom. If you're going to do a bunch of river stuff, you want more of a V-shaped stuff. So like all that comes into, what you're wanting to do. What's your goal? Can you take an autopilot or a MK106 down the river? Yeah. It may not be enjoyable depending on the river, but it's all, within reason. If it's the Mississippi River, it's different than some of these Ozark rivers. So, talk about or look at those things. We talk about doing demos all the time. We do them all the time here. That's huge for customers, and to me, it's anything you take when you buy a car, you take a test drive. It's like one of those things. Just get into it if you can, if you have that ability. A lot of these kayaks now these days, and this goes to our next point, is the drive systems. You've got pedal, you've got power, paddle, different stuff like that. Let's talk specifically on pedal drives. JT, what do you think of that Hobie fin drive specifically?
Incredibly fast and incredibly easy to push and extremely agile.
The efficiency of that drive is pretty impressive.
Yeah, I think it would be hard pressed. Yeah, I don't think you'll beat the Hobie fin drives as far as fin drives go. So,
and
yeah,
you've got the really ability to say, Hobie versus the Vanhunks fin drive. I mean, completely different price points, but that's part of what you're paying for when you go to a Hobie. That fin drive on that Vanhunks is their older model fin drive that they came out with that Vanhunks is remaking now. But I mean, fin drives may match up to what you're fishing. What is your comparison between the two? I know Hobie's a lot nicer, but what do you think as far as just starting out in a Pike with that fin drive?
I think you would like it. And when I discuss this stuff with people, I kind of always ask them, going back to our last conversation is when you are going to buy one, you really should almost make a list of the pros and cons or the types of water that you think you're going to fish. So if you're going to fish, like you mentioned, a small farm pond, then tight turning isn't that big of a deal. But if you're someone who's going to fish primarily fast moving rivers, that's really going to hone you in on those longer V-shaped kayaks. So, and same thing with fin drive or prop drive. I mean, most propeller drives come with instant reverse. Only Hobie comes with reverse for fin drives. So if you're going to get in tight spots and need to back in and out or attack little tight pockets, you're probably going to want something that has some reverse. It's just all those things I didn't think about. But I love the Pike fin drive too. I fish a lot of weedy areas, and I love being able to push 1 foot forward, and you kind of get those fins up tight under there, and then you can just do little presses, and you kind of move the fins in this tiny little motion, and you can skim water with a fin drive in like 4 or 5 inches of water. Like, that's a really fun feature. You wouldn't be able to do that with a prop drive on any kayak. So
right, that's why it's so important, as a new person getting into this. Like I said before, listening to this, it so much depends on the river you're in. Johnathan said it earlier. If you're in a river that is 18 inches deep and deeper always, well, then a prop drive will work just fine for you.
Yeah.
Now, if you're in our type of rivers around here that goes to some super shallows, then the fin drive is a really nice option because you can flutter it, like JT was saying. You can bring that underneath and flutter it and then still move, and you're just kicking along. So And you don't have to pull that up all the time. With
Yeah.
the prop drive, you've got to get it up because as soon as it hits, you're going to start having problems. So yeah, it just depends on the body of water, the type of water you're in. Personally, I'm a fan of the prop drives because of the reverse.
Yeah, it's huge.
And I think really the only person that's got the prop drive figured out for river use is Jackson. Jackson's flex drive actually comes up into the hull. So that's a good option as well if you're if a prop is what you like. And like you said earlier, the prop or the Jacksons and the Hobies are a different price point as well. So, that Outback's pretty amazing, but it does come with a price tag.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of prop drives, the biggest advantage is, like you said, is that instant reverse. If you're even in the prop drives, there's comparison between like the Jackson and the Old Town one. The Old Town one is very efficient, very fast. So if your goal is you're wanting to beat the guy to the spot and you're fishing a tournament, then maybe the Old Town drive is better for you. But again, you've got to figure out what your goals are, where you're fishing, where you're doing, where you're just recreational stuff. Maybe it doesn't matter on speed. You just want to get out and get some exercise. Drives play into that. All this stuff is just something to think about whenever you're online shopping. Once you go to a kayak shop, just stuff to start thinking about. So if we talk about, hey, someone's coming in the shop and they have no clue what they want or whatnot, these are just things that you should be thinking about. Start off with the hole, what you want to do. Start off with, where you're going to fish, stuff that that you can relate to that, that salesman, that person, and go from there. But it's just little things to think about whenever you come to the shop.
Yeah. And I would say some 1, 2, 3s of when you decide on a prop drive, or excuse me, on a drive at all, as far as pedal, take that kayak out and demo it. But when you demo it, pedal it, of course. But as a new person, what I would want you to do is raise and lower it.
Yeah.
Lift it in and out. Figure out what's going to happen when you get in a spot that has to happen, how easy those things are for you, not just pedaling. The pedaling that's the easy part.
Yeah. And when you do that, pull that paddle out and just paddle the kayak as well.
Correct.
Because if you get into a situation where, hey, I may have to paddle this thing, you're going to want to know that, hey, I can easily paddle this thing wherever I need to go to.
Yeah. If you're running down the river and you're in an Old Town PDL and you need to know that you can get that prop, that whole drive up and out. Same thing with the Wilderness. You need to know not only the Wilderness system ejects straight up. Well, you need to know that you have the physical ability to push that back down.
Yeah.
And there's things like that. As a new buyer of that kind of product, I would make sure to test those things when you get a kayak. Make sure that it works for your application, whether that be the Vanhunks, if that pedal drive works for you, if whatever it is, there's a lot of different options. Not all props are the same, like you talked about. And we're not going to knock any of them, but there's difference in efficiencies. There's difference in how smooth they run, and just make sure that it works for you. But like I said, the biggest point I wanted to make is don't just see how it pedals. See how you can handle that kayak and that equipment.
Yeah, for sure. If you're planning on standing up and fishing, stand up in it. We had a guy, he came in, we took him on a demo and he wanted to stand up some, and I was like, let's do it. We got him on the water, and he ended up falling out, and which was kind of testament to some of these kayaks, because he fell out. The kayak didn't flip. He got back in the kayak, and he's like, well, it's nice to know that I'm not going to flip this thing unless I really try, depending on the kayak. And he came in and he bought 3 kayaks. I think he bought 3 kayaks for his whole family and whatnot.
And he said, it's nice to know that. He said, I got so far on the edge of this thing, I don't think I could have flipped it.
Yeah.
He said, you're going to bail before that kayak's going over.
So, you get through that whole process, and, before you buy something, the other thing you need to think of it, and a lot of times it's like, oh crap, I bought a kayak, is how you're going to transport it. You talked about the guy doing the farm pond stuff. He wanted a 10-foot one. If you're car topping, you probably don't want an autopilot. You probably don't want a big old NAR. That's stuff to think about too. And that's part of the process. And a lot of times, like I know us, we offer trailers, we offer different stuff. So that can be, part of your purchasing and your budgeting and your stuff like that as well. But even your car top loading, your bed extenders, your truck, a trailer, if you decide to go that route, that's something that you need to think about as well. JT, whenever you got your Pike, was that one of the issues or concerns that you had when you first bought it as well?
Yeah, I was hoping during this podcast some of the stuff would come up, some of the mistakes we've made, and that was definitely one of them. We had a minivan, and I bought 2 Vanhunks Pikes, and they're on the lighter side. I mean, 70 pounds unloaded. And I just assumed, I'm athletic, I work out, I can lift stuff up, right? I can, typical stuff of overestimating your own abilities. I think my wife and I got it up there once, and then I went and bought a trailer.
Yeah.
And of course, the argument that we had before I bought them was she's like, you're going to need a trailer and stuff. Is this really going to work? I put in a ton of research too. And that's what was so tough about it, right? Was I did a bunch of research and kind of tried buying everything right. And that's just a mistake I made and I had to make, if that makes sense. So,
yeah, and those are questions that don't get answered until you get out there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because it's
so you
all
got to look
situational.
Yep, and I think if you were roofing one of them, they make saddles so you can at least get behind it and kind of push it up and roll it. But we were going to try and do 2 of them, so it was more of a J-rack style, and they fit in there, but you're lifting it up sideways, and those are just all things that you have to consider and keep that in mind with your budget too when you're going to look at a kayak. Don't think that just the kayak is going to be the purchase and the last purchase. Like,
and honestly,
leave yourself room.
If you, say you have $3,000 to spend, shop in that $2,000. Because the other thing too is transporting. If you're doing that, you got to figure that out. We always recommend life jacket, paddle. That's a couple $100 right there. When you are transporting, how are you going to get it? Say you throw it in the back of the truck. How are you going to get it from the ramp to the truck? Carts, different stuff like that. That's one thing that I, made a mistake as well. When I got my first kayak, I bought a C-Tug cart. They're very entry level, but it wasn't ideal for the kayak that I had. It didn't fit that kayak as well as I hoped. And I struggled with that. And I regretted not, spending the extra money for a wilderness cart or something like that.
Yeah, you don't want a $3,000 kayak that you destroy. Getting it back and forth to the water because you've used everybody your funds. And Johnathan, I actually went with the 120 only because of how I can handle it out off the water.
Yeah.
I mean, I looked at the 136 and the 120. Everybody wants the 136. I thought, you know what? I can handle a 120 on my own considerably easier. I can put it in the back of my truck. I don't have to always trailer it. So that was kind of the thought.
Yeah.
So, but I actually went through several kayaks. I started off with a huge Ascend that was just massive
tanks,
and it was a barge, and it was just hard to handle. Tore the thing apart trying to get it to and from the water half the time. And yeah, man, spend that money to buy you a package.
Yeah.
Put it together, and then find out also, even when you go into, this goes beyond kayak, but just like you said, yeah, you can go on Amazon and for $24.99, you can get the little fold apart with the foam wheels carts. But I'm telling you, you're going to fight that.
Yeah.
And that to me, that's the second biggest purchase you should make is your cart, if that's how you're getting it to and from the water, because the wilderness carts and the new Yak Attack and some of the Boondocks has some nice ones. So Spins now has a nice one. Put some money and stuff like that, because it's going to save your back and it will make or break your trip.
Correct. It's going to make it a lot more enjoyable. We went on a float trip with Jake and Ryan a couple weeks ago, and I didn't bring a cart because I thought we were just launching at a launch, and we ended up needing them. And so it was nice, having, because we had to go down it's probably a half mile to get to the actual water and whatnot. But it was nice having that cart rather than getting to a spot and like, oh crap, am I going to drag this thing that far? Am I going to find somewhere else to go? It just makes it enjoyable. So realize when you are buying a kayak, when you are getting into it, there's other stuff that you're going to need. So don't don't say, hey, I've got $3,000 and I'm putting on a kayak, because then, you're strapped for cash because you bought other stuff. Maybe go down to that next price point, and you may not enjoy it at first, but you may learn a lot of stuff from that too, getting into it.
And talk to your local kayak shop about doing a bundle.
Yeah.
I know we do that a lot here because we want people to have the absolute best experience that they can when we get on the water. We absolutely do not want you in a junk life jacket.
Yeah.
We want you in a good life jacket that is a kayak jacket, because if all of a sudden you're putting on some big, bass boat jacket or whatever, and then you're against that seat all day and your back hurts, well, it's the kayak's fault.
Yeah.
Well, so we try to educate our customers, and our friends and family and everybody on the little things that really do matter when you get out there. You buy a really cheap paddle, it's going to paddle cheap.
Yeah.
You go to push off, may snap.
Yeah.
So just looking at that and trying to do a bundle, I think is a great way to experience your kayak the way it really needs to be experienced, and that's get on the water ready.
Yeah. JT, what were you about to say?
No, I was going to say, like, I think to kind of sum all of that up, I think if you're really going into buying your first kayak, starting smaller is okay.
Yeah,
I know
absolutely.
as a retailer, I'm sure that's probably not the most beneficial thing to say, but I also think sometimes you can get too big of eyes and it'll hit your wallet. I think already in 2 years, I know what my next kayak might be or should be, because I know how I want to fish, where I like to fish, and what I am looking for in my next kayak. And I
Yeah.
think starting out at, like, and even if you get into a fishing kayak, even on the smaller end of your budget, they're still going to be nicer than your sit-in traditional kayak. So I think no matter what, people are almost always happy with whatever they end up in for their first one. But I think you learn more about what you want the next time by just being reasonable with what your expectations are for that first one. I really think you spend a year or two learning the accessories you need and how you want to fish. So I think, starting smaller is an okay step, if that makes sense, and just allowing yourself some grace to learn.
Yeah, that's a good segue into accessories as well. That's one thing, kind of our go-to statement here that's always funny is we always tell people we're the worst, and apologize to Caleb and Jared. We always tell people we're the worst accessory salesman in the world when you're buying a new kayak, because go on the water with that kayak, find out what you need. We would rather do that than have you come in and say, okay, I need, 2 rod holders. I need a black pack. I need, everything under the sun. And then all of a sudden we see you in 3 weeks and you want to return it because, I don't have room for this and I don't like that. So, we tell everybody, go get on the water and find out. Say, you know what? If I had a cup holder right here, this would be a better experience than buy a cup holder. Or you can figure it all out at one time, but go out, figure out, just the evolution of my own personal kayak with now the new Sasquatch bar.
Yeah.
I had, like most, I had everything on the side of my kayak, rod holders, a little bit of everything. When you catch a fish, you're kind of working around it, and for some reason the fish never do what I want. They kind of have a mind of their own. So I want them over here in one little spot and just jump in the net, but they want to go over here, and which is all my stuff's over there. So I'm dealing with that. The new Sasquatch now, that's changed the way I fish.
Yeah.
Moved everything to the middle. It's never in my way. So those are all things I figured out as we go and as new products came out. So we always tell people that. Get out there, figure out what you need.
Yeah. JT, what was your favorite accessory that you got that you didn't know you needed?
Ooh, that's a good question, because I made that exact mistake that Travis just said. I bought way too much because, my eyes got big. It's like, oh, it's going to be awesome. And I bought a ton of accessories. And then I realized a couple times into it that, oh crap, this isn't the way I fish. Like, this is in the way. And I think for me, I don't like clutter. Like, in my general life, I don't like clutter. So I think it's more about efficiency for me. But I would say some of the Yak Attack, like getting the appropriate fish finder holder, was big. And kind of, I would also say the double header paddle holder, because the way some of the traditional ones that come with the kayak, it's kind of just on the side. It's hard to get off. With that one, I was able to actually pick where I mounted it and get it off to the side that I don't ever really net a fish on. And then on the other one would be the Yak Attack leverage net.
Yeah.
because when you go to catch bigger fish, you're just having that brace that goes down on your arm to scoop when you're trying
Yeah.
to keep your kayak in position and just yeah. So
Not,
those would
not
probably
to
be my favorite.
Yeah, not to bring up your heartbreak again, but you really lived through it whenever you caught that big fish and then you lost it because of your net. But
Well,
Yeah.
I lost it through the net, but I did
yeah,
land it in the kayak though. I got
Yeah.
lucky
yeah,
that time. A trout
Well,
net for northern pike fishing was dumb from the start.
I'll tell you mine, and this is something I kind of learned as I went. And mine is very simple, but it changed. It made because I'm kind of like you as far as the clutter goes in my kayak. I want everything kind of in a spot, and this really changed how I felt fishing. And that is really it's 3 products, but it is the Yak Attack cup holder, the One Objective Cup caddy, and then the Yak Attack uh, retractable lanyard.
hmm
And I don't need the cup holder for a cup. I end up struggling with when I have stuff I take off my line or any little pieces and parts that I'm dealing with of where those go. They end up all over my kayak. My cup holder that's in my kayak that's a horrible place to put it because I'm still trying to put drinks and put stuff in it, trying to dig it out. So now that my cup holder's up there, now I have my cup holder, I have the cup caddy, my pliers and my hemostats are in there with the retractable cord because I've bought several pairs of pliers that have went kaplunk.
yeah,
So that little setup right there, which is probably some of the most inexpensive stuff you can buy, I like that way better than some of my fancier rod holders or some of that stuff. Those things were so usable and really helped me enjoy my experiences better.
yeah, for sure. And it's always it seems like it's always the little things, just making it more convenient for you, making it. But you don't know that until you get on the water. You buy your first kayak. Don't go crazy and go some Lake of the Ozarks midsummer where it's crazy busy. Go somewhere where you're comfortable. Get it on the water. Figure out what you want. Figure out what you need. And go from there. Don't break the bank. Don't go crazy. We love doing custom builds and all that stuff here, but we also love a customer that got on the water and said, "Hey, I enjoyed this, but I could do this," and that's fun too to build that relationship. JT, do you have any questions for us from the forum that maybe in line with just beginner kayaks, just get into it?
Well, hey,
Quick,
real quick, while you're pulling
yeah.
that up, I will say too one thing. If you are in the market for a kayak, let's talk about buying time. You know, I know come spring, everybody's into it,
Mhm.
but whether you're on a strict budget, honestly, guys, right now is the time to be
Yeah,
buying kayaks, whether you're hunting marketplace, whether you're, just trying to get in it as cheap as you can get in it, or you're wanting to do a build. Right now is the time. You've got a lot of 2023 models that your dealers are looking to get moved. You've got a lot of guys with scratch and dents or returns that are looking to do stuff. And then, like you said, you got a lot of guys on marketplace with guys who are either upgrading their kayak or guys that are not using them anymore or whatever. We see a lot of really good deals right now. So yeah, everybody wants to buy it and go straight to the water. But if you're looking to save some money, really right now is the opportune time to be buying
yeah,
kayaks.
and don't freak out that it's a 2023 model. Hardly ever they're changing stuff between years on kayaks unless they're coming out with something completely new. But it's not like a vehicle. It's not like it's, a year previous. You're not losing value. The vendors as well, they always run stuff for us to help with that as well. They're running specials, they're running deals, different stuff like that. But get into your shop and say, "Hey, what do you guys have available? What can you work with?" And if they're smart, they'll work with you. I mean, we do it all the time. We don't mind, like, "Hey, this is last year. It's a demo one. It's been on the water a couple times. It's perfectly fine." And maybe you get to that next point that you want to be without spending that retail price tag.
Yeah, you get that kayak you were looking for. It's a year model newer. And I'm telling you, even if we take it right out of the plastic, first trip, it's going to have scars. It's going to have, this and that. And that may be able to put you in the boat you're looking for.
For sure.
We've addressed some of them, but what factors led you to buy the kayak you did?
So I'm in the Hobie Pro Angler 14 360 right now. Um, to me, that is one of the best tournament fishing platforms. I want to fish national events. I want to fish all the Missouri events. That just the horizontal rod storage is huge for me. Once you have it, it's like, hey, I don't want to ever go back. It's one of those things. Power pole, you don't have to worry about things sticking up with that horizontal rod storage. A lot of those black packs, they have rod holders that stand straight up. That's where I'm at now. Plus the weight capacity, the gear. I take too much gear, and my goal for 2024 in fishing is to cut that down. I don't know if I'm going to get there or not, but I want to cut down on my tackle, on my rods, and different stuff like that, and kind of slim that down and be more efficient. But that's kind of where I'm at now. I want that tournament rig. I've been in the Phil Freeze. I've been in the Ascends. I've been in other ones, all great kayaks, but I feel like that Hobie is really lined up for me. I love the fin drive. This last year, half the year, I went out without the motor a lot of times, and I was very impressed on how efficient that drive is, even for a 14-foot kayak. But that's what led me to where I'm at now.
Yeah, and what led me to where I'm at is, and I was in several different kayaks. I have a Jackson Bite with the flex drive that I use in the rivers because I just think it's really smooth and easy. And then my 120 autopilot, I'm in that because I was in a 106 Minn Kota, but when you fish with guys like this who have spot lock and it drives you nuts, then I decided I wanted the spot lock. So really that was the biggest thing on my decision, is to move up to the spot lock version.
Yeah.
I'm not a tournament guy, but when you're fishing big lakes and things like that, and when you like doing crappie, fishing crappie and things like that, the spot lock's really nice. So that's what led me to mine.
Kayakanglersresource.com. It's the community that we started. It's also the name of our podcast. It's all aimed at educating more people out there, and especially for beginners, I think the biggest thing is asking questions at your retailers, asking questions even of the brand distributors. But more importantly, I think asking questions to people, kind of like myself, right? Who made all those mistakes as a beginner. The best way to learn isn't from somebody who's trying to necessarily sell you something. Yeah. It's from someone who spent an entire year making mistakes and learning and honing. So hop on there, ask your questions. We'd love to keep featuring them on here. So
realize there's no dumb questions on there. There's either people that know or don't know. If you don't know, it's not a big deal. But get on there, open up, talk about stuff. JT, I've loved the fact that you've set up that you can ask specific questions and have that tab there, and people can literally go back to that and just talk about something specific. There's so much in the world of kayak fishing and kayaking and all this accessories, different stuff like that. But I really like how you've got it set up where they can get into a specific kayak, asking a specific question, and really, not have to read through everything to get what they want.
And get those answers not only from us, but from other anglers. It's a forum. So that's probably what I like about it the most, is we have some of our pro staffers who like to jump on there when a guy asks about a 136 autopilot. We have Mason Brock who will actually jump on and say, this is what I have. This is the mistakes I made. This is where I'm at now. And so, yeah, the forum is just a great place to interact with just anglers about anything. So yeah, get on there. We love what we do. So we love just to talk shop about this stuff. So you can call us at any time, email us directly. We can put all that information up. But that forum it's a great way. Throw some pictures on there, throw whatever. We'd love to talk to you guys.
100%. Travis, it's 2024. Any big goals, fishing, kayak fishing, any goals you got set out for this year?
I do. I have one very lofty goal. And that is, this year, I want to go to Venice, Louisiana and fish redfish out of my kayak.
All right.
That's my biggest goal of 2024. I've redfished several times, never out of a kayak. Would love to do it. And that's a bucket list trip I'm going to try and do in 2024.
That's cool, man. 2024, I want to fish Bassmasters. I want to fish a lot of the national events. They've got 5 going on this year. I don't know if I'll make all 5, but I'd love to go to those and make them and hopefully do well. That would be really cool to, have a podium in there, top 20. But I want to focus on bass this year and fish that for 2024. JT, what about you, man?
Push myself out of my comfort zone. I spent the entire last year basically going to the same 3 or 4 spots, fishing the same I mean, it's fun, right? Like I know what I'm doing, but I think I
Yeah.
need to learn how to fish for different species. And then in specifically, I want to do a little bit more stuff in rivers, like faster moving water. I have
Yeah.
a lot of cool river systems around here with a lot of different species. So I think mine's just stepping out of what I'm good at and what I know and trying new things.
Yeah.
Specifically walleye. I live in Minnesota and it's a sin that I don't fish for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
I catch a lot of grief for that, so I would like to learn how to do that.
You catch them, we'll eat them.
That's deal.
Well, 2024, it's a great year to get into kayak fishing, to upgrade your kayak, to do whatever you want. And like we mentioned, we want to be a resource to you guys. So feel free to ask questions, reach out, come by the shop, ecofishingshop.com. You can get on there, check out all the accessories that we have. If there's a vendor or something specifically that we don't carry, reach out to us, see if we can get it. We'd love to help you guys out. We love talking shop. As we mentioned, our customer service team are great at answering questions. Again, there's no stupid questions, but reach out. Feel free to talk to us, and we enjoy doing this.
For sure. And if you're interested in what's next after your kayak, get a hold of us or watch next week's episode. We're going to have Spencer O'Neill. He started off this last year, 2023, in a Vanhunks Pike. He actually started fishing tournaments, and he's trying to make a decision. Does he go Old Town 106 PDL, or excuse me, 120 PDL, or does he go with a Hobie Outback? Watch us next week, and you get to see what he decided and what we're doing with that boat.
Well, guys, that's it for the show. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching. And we'll catch you on the next one.